Time for some help from our two personal trainers, a Yeti, who's good at athletics and fortitude saves, and a living wildfire, who's good at acrobatics and reflex saves. But first, let's warm up with some exercises of our own. First, drop prone, which makes you flat-footed and gives you a -2 attack roll penalty. Now stand. Now drop prone. Now hunker down while prone, for greater cover against ranged attacks. That doesn't remove flat-footed, by the way. Now stand. Now drop prone. Now crawl, which lets you move 5 feet while prone. Now stand. Now step, which lets you move 5 feet without triggering reactions. Now stride. Now leap up onto a 3-foot tall adjacent square. Now leap 10 feet across a 5-foot gap. Hey, don't you need to make a long jump roll for that? Not yet. With leap, you can jump 3 feet up or 10 feet forward, no check required. All of these actions have the move trait. Move! There are other action traits, like the manipulate and attack trait. You already know one thing about the attack trait. It incurs and suffers from a multiple attack penalty. By the way, what's the point of the step action? Why not just stride? Step actions don't incur reactions. Let's say you're sparring with your friend, who has the attack of opportunity reaction. Attack of opportunity grants you a free, multiple attack penalty-free melee attack if an opponent in range uses a move action, a manipulate action, or a ranged action. We already talked about move actions. If you drop prone, attack of opportunity. If you stand, attack of opportunity. If you stride away, attack of opportunity. If you stride forward, technically you used the move action while you were over there, so you're safe. But if you step away, also safe. That's the whole point of step. What if you stride forward and then away? Attack of opportunity. Attack of opportunity also triggers if you leave a square in melee range during a move action. The step action also has another restriction. In difficult terrain, when you stride into difficult terrain, each square of movement costs 5 extra feet. You cannot step in difficult terrain. Likewise, if you stride into greater difficult terrain, each square costs an extra 10 feet. We can add these to our facts about the move and manipulate traits. They provoke attack of opportunity, if the opponent has that ability. Most spellcasting has the manipulate trait too, meaning they provoke attack of opportunity. Enough warm-up. Now it's exercise time. Let's talk about a funky move action with living wildfire. Let's talk about tumble through. Let's say you're fighting a living wildfire and you want to stride through her space. You can use the action tumble through. First, stride as normal, but also you can move through one enemy space, like difficult terrain. You only have to meet or exceed an acrobatics check against the opponent's reflex DC. So if you stride, make an acrobatics check, succeed, and move through the enemy like difficult terrain. If you fail the reflex save, you stop right before you are about to move through the opponent. Now let's see our other personal trainer, a Yeti. We'll be talking about some actions with the attack trait. But first, what is the manipulate trait for anyway? One action it includes is the interact action. You actually already know what that is. If we look at our cheat sheet, we have draw an item and drop an item. They should say interact and release, and they are a lot more versatile. For example, you interact to draw a shield. You release to drop a shield. You interact to take a sword from a friend. You also interact to switch from wielding a weapon one-handed to two-handed. That's controversial, but to take a hand off a weapon is just release. To stow a weapon is interact. A free hand allows you to make a special attack actions like trip, shove, grapple, and disarm. Some weapons have a trait like shove, trip, or disarm, which means you can use that weapon in lieu of a free hand. Some of these actions are good against big burly enemies with bad reflex saves like trip and disarm, just like tumble through. Others are better at quick light enemies with bad fortitude saves like shove and grapple. While tumble through is an acrobatics roll, these 4 are athletics. You can only use disarm if you're trained in athletics. It's also not very good, so we're not going to talk about it today. Trip is athletics versus reflex. On a success, the enemy is knocked prone. Remember, they can't stride, only stand or crawl. On a failure, nothing happens. On a critical failure, you fall prone. And on a critical success, the enemy falls prone and takes 1d6 damage. Shove is athletics versus fortitude. The failure and critical failure conditions are the same as trip. On a success, the enemy is pushed back 5 feet. You can optionally follow them as well. On a critical success, the enemy is pushed back 10 feet. All of these actions have the attack trait. Unfortunately, that means they also have a multiple attack penalty. So what's the point? Let's say you and a friend are fighting a Yeti. The most standard option to fight would be to stride, then strike twice. Then your friend would stride and strike twice. But then the Yeti gets 3 strikes. What if the Yeti strikes are really powerful? Let's reset and play defensively. You stride, strike, and then stride back. Your friend strides, strikes, and then strides back. Now the Yeti must stride towards you and can only strike twice. Very defensive. But you only also get 2 chances to strike. Let's reset and use trips. You stride, then trip, then strike. Your friend strides, then strikes twice. Now the Yeti must stand up to avoid a -2 penalty, and then can still only strike twice. However, your allies have 3 total strikes, and they were all against a flat-footed opponent. Shove can work the same way if you're fighting a light and quick enemy. Stride, then strike twice. Then your friend strides, strikes, and shoves. Now the opponent must stride in order to strike twice. A living wildfire isn't a good example for this because they can attack up to 10 feet away. Let's reset. Let's say you and your ally have low HP and need protecting. Worse, the living wildfire is in range to attack. If you have a defensive teammate, they can stride and shove to protect you. Grapple is athletics athletics versus fortitude. On a success, you grab the enemy until your next turn. On a critical success, you restrain the enemy until your next turn. On a failure, nothing happens and you stop grabbing. On a critical failure, you either fall prone or the enemy grabs you. What are grabbed and restrained? Restrained is the powerful version of grabbed. Both make you flat-footed. Both immobilize you, meaning you can't use move actions. If you're grabbed, you must succeed a DC 5 flat check to use a manipulate action, like interact or most spells. That means enemies are going to be highly encouraged to either attack you or escape. That's right, escape has the attack trait. You make an unarmed attack roll against a relevant DC, in this case your athletics DC. If you fail, nothing. If you succeed, you're free. If you critically succeed, you're free and can move. If you critically fail, you can't try to escape again this round. If you are restrained, you can't use any manipulate or attack actions except escape, so enemies can only try to escape. The grab condition lasts until the end of your next turn. Let's say you're fighting a Yeti. On your turn, you interact to stow your cheese, so you have a free hand. Then you grapple and succeed, grabbing the Yeti. Then you strike at a -5, the flat-footed Yeti. Then it's the Yeti's turn. Who's still grabbed? The Yeti can't stride away, but the Yeti can still strike. Now it's your turn. At the end of your turn, the Yeti will lose the grabbed condition, unless you grapple again. If you have the opponent grabbed, you can still use grapple, even if you don't have a free hand. Then you can strike again at a -5 penalty. Now let's say the Yeti strikes twice and then tries to escape. But remember, escape has the attack trait. That means in this scenario, it incurs a -10 multiple attack penalty. Grabbed opponents are incentivized to escape or attack you. That makes them great for defensive characters who want to protect their allies. It's also worth noting that you can't use any of these actions on an opponent more than one size larger than you. That means leshies, halflings, gnomes, and goblins can only use maneuvers against medium creatures, and humans, elves, orcs, and dwarves can only use them against large creatures. Let's look at our new cheat sheet. For the record, these have the move trait, these have the manipulate trait, and these have the attack trait.